So, da sind wir wieder auf der Bean Stage und wir haben ein ganz besonderes Thema und einen ganz besonderen Gast, nämlich Matt Firor, Chefentwickler für The Elder Scrolls Online, und ich habe hier einen MMO-Profi neben mir, Steffen.
Moment, bin ich hier der MMO-Profi? Ich dachte, du bist die MMO-Profi.
Nein, ich bin hier. Punkt.
Okay, alles klar. Ja. Dann weiß ich ja, wie es abläuft.
Genau. Und wir beide haben schon ein bisschen gespielt. Es gibt nämlich ein neues Add-on, nämlich Elsweyr, wo die Kashyyyk zu Hause sind. Und da wollen wir ein paar Fragen an Matt stellen und wie es mit der Zukunft ist von TESO, wie wir es, die Profis das nennen, Elder Scrolls Online TESO. Ich muss das wieder erklären, weil er nicht wusste, was das sagen.
Ich finde es gut, dass du es nochmal etablierst und nochmal kurz erklärst.
Genau, ja, damit das auch wieder so sagt.
Das finde ich gut.
Yeah, well, Matt, thanks for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. This is great.
Yes, it is.
Welcome on our little stage. I hope you have a pleasant gamescom so far.
Yes, it's been very crowded and lots of people, but it's always great. I've been to every gamescom since 2002.
Oh wow!
Yeah, even in Leipzig.
Yes.
And,
Wow.
Yeah, so
Which one is better? Gamescom?
this one's a lot bigger.
Gamescom? Yeah.
Yes.
But
it was.
But more crowded also.
But more. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. In Leipzig, it was less people, and it was. But here, Cologne is fantastic. So.
Yes, it is. And many people don't know that you are or were the leading head behind the Dark Age of Camelot. So
That's right.
You're an MMORPG veteran in the industry.
From a long time. My first game was in 1988.
Oh wow, 1988.
Yeah.
That's a long time. And
don't do the math.
Of course.
It's bad. But no, yeah, I was the producer on Dark Age of Camelot, and so I came to Germany a lot in that 2001 because it was very, very popular in Germany.
And then you joined the fresh team of the Elder Scrolls Online. You made a complete new game in an already existing world of Tamriel, which existed for around 25 years, I think.
Yeah, this is the 25th anniversary of the first Elder Scrolls game called Arena, which was 1994.
Yes. Wow. Which were the biggest challenges for you as someone who made very big MMORPGs already before, and then joining a brand new and designing a brand new one?
It's a great question. It's so Elder Scrolls is very, very famous and very big, and the challenge was making a game that meets everyone's expectations. You know, Skyrim came out in 2011 and it was huge, and ESO came out in 2014 and it was the next Elder Scrolls game after Skyrim, so lots of expectations. And so a lot of our job was making sure that everyone felt at home when they logged into Elder Scrolls Online. So that was the biggest challenge, was make this insanely large game make it work worldwide and make it feel like home for Elder Scrolls players. Very challenging.
Did the development of the Elder Scrolls Online start before the release of Skyrim or afterwards?
Oh no, long before, 2008. So Oblivion was the Elder Scrolls game then.
Yeah, okay.
And so Skyrim was not even in development then. It was a long time ago.
And after sorry.
Oh yeah. So you did get information about Skyrim at the time, so you could create the world like it's going to be in the game then.
Yeah, but nobody knew how big it was going to be, we, after Skyrim launched, we went and changed many things in ESO to make the UI to make it more like Skyrim.
So after the release of Skyrim and the big success of Skyrim, were your team a little bit overwhelmed with the success? And do you thought that, oh well, there was this huge success, which was Skyrim, and now we have the Elder Scrolls Online, which comes out 3 years later?
I wouldn't say overwhelmed, but it was very clear how big the job was to do. So, but we did it. I mean, it's ESO launched, and it's been very, very successful ever since.
So how many areas are right now in the Elder Scrolls Online
Well, Tamriel has 10 provinces, including the Imperial province, Cyrodiil. So we have parts of all of them in ESO now. So we just launched Elsweyr 2 months ago, and that was the first real bit of content we had in Elsweyr where the Kashyyyk are. But yeah, we have every other province has at least some area in Elder Scrolls Online. So I think it's 35 zones. It's big, and tons of dungeons, and it's very, very, very big now. Every 12 weeks, 4 times a year, we release new content. So since 2015 or 2014, it's 4 times a year. So it's 23 updates so far.
And the next big updates for Elsweyr are Scalebreaker and Dragonhold.
Yes.
Which are the focus of these updates?
Yes. Well, this year we did something a little different where instead of just having cool content over the year, this year we did a story that takes the whole year. So we called it Season of the Dragon, and all 4 of the updates in this year all tell the story of dragons invading Elsweyr. So we had Rastone early in the year, and then Elsweyr, and now we have Scalebreaker, which is 2 dungeons with dragon bosses that have kind of a deep dive into lore about why the dragons are there and these particular dragons and why they're so special. And then Dragonhold comes out in the 4th quarter, and this is my favorite video, by the way. Dragonhold comes out in the 4th quarter, and it is the end of the Season of the Dragon, so it wraps up the story. If you remember from Skyrim, there was an organization called the Dragon Guard, which hunted dragons, and we are 700 years before Skyrim. So, and there aren't many dragons because of Skyrim. No spoilers, but because of the end of Skyrim, we know that there are not many dragons in Tamriel at ESO's time. So the Dragon Guard is very, very small. They don't have much to do. So your job in Dragonhold is to assemble the Dragon Guard and go hunt dragons.
So we are responsible for the extinction of these creatures.
If you played Skyrim, you'll understand that.
Yeah. But what's actually new? You got necromancers, you have the Khajiit world, and I love Khajiit, by the way, so I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, I think we had 3 things that players have been asking us forever. We want to go to Elsweyr and see the cat people. We want dragons, where are the dragons? And we want to play necromancers. So we did them all in this year. And it's cool. The necromancer is a lot of fun. That's him right there in the video. He represents. He can turn into this big skeleton and run around and beat up people. But we did an interesting thing with the necromancers where necromancy is illegal in Tamriel. You can't. It's forbidden. And so if you do necromancy spells in cities, guards will come and attack you, and because it's not allowed. So it's a cool role-playing element that you have to stay out of the cities if you want to have your skeleton pet walking around.
How's the process of choosing what is going to be a new class in coming updates? Because I think it's kind of a big deal to implement a new class in an already existing MMORPG.
Yeah, especially one with PvP.
Yeah.
So yes, it's why we don't do it very much. We've only introduced 2 new classes since we launched, the Warden and now the Necromancer. And it's because balancing gets more and more difficult over time as we add more skills and more classes. We need to make sure that things are in balance and new class isn't too powerful or too weak, and so that's why we don't do it very often. So it's special when we do.
Were there other classes you had on your drawing board when you considered to add a new class to Elsweyr?
This time with the Warden in Morrowind 2 years ago, yes. But with the Necromancer, we knew we wanted to do the Necromancer. Okay. So that was the only one we thought about.
So it was quite clear that the community wanted the Necromancer so bad that you guys had to do something.
Exactly.
Okay, I see. Great.
So how often does it happen that the community wishes something and you say to yourself, well, that's logical and that's a great idea, we're going to put it in?
I mean, obviously we can't do everything everybody wants, but we do get a lot of our ideas from the community. Like we take feedback. In fact, the year after we launched in 2014, we made tons of changes to the game because players thought, hey, this game's fun, but it doesn't really feel Elder Scrolls enough. And so we actually looked at what people were saying and how they were playing and added a whole bunch of new systems to make it feel more Elder Scrolls, more freedom. And so when we launched on console in 2015, then it was very successful because of that. But that player feedback is very important. In a game like Elder Scrolls Online, there's no game without the community. They are literally the game. So we take that very seriously.
And how many people are working every day on this game to update it, to put new things into it?
A lot. It's a big team, but you know, when you think about it, we release new things every 12 weeks, 4 times a year, and it's so we have a great cadence. And but yes, it's a lot of people, a lot of art. If you look at all the art, like Elsweyr looks completely different from Somerset, and but it's fun. I mean, it's fun to do.
would you consider, or would you say that it's easier to work on a pre-existing game for a long period of time, like service games does today, or is it easier to make a game one time, release it, and then go to the next game?
I will speak for all game developers and say,
for you personally,
when a service game, they are so hard to make that when they are successful, you want to keep working on it because the technology works. We're talking about Tamriel and dragons and necromancers, but the game runs on top of a giant IT infrastructure that is very, very complicated, and it works. So on ESO, so we love the fact that it works. We can make content, we can give content to players, so we're very happy to keep working on it.
You got a history of online games. What is your fascination behind that? Why do you stick to those games?
A good question. So when I started, multiplayer meant you called on the phone with a modem, and the computer had 2 modems attached to it. And I know I'm saying words that most English speakers don't understand at this point. It's so long ago, but it was just cool to be able to play a game even in text, like a MUD, that had other players in it because they were so rare. It was so different, and so I started with a couple of friends, a company that did those text games that you called into and you could play with other people, and that turned over years into Mythic Entertainment and into Dark Age of Camelot. So I just kind of grew into it that way with the industry. It's much different now. If I was trying to get into the industry, it would be a much different path. But since the industry and I grew up together, it was easier back then.
Do you have any tips for people who want to get in the industry and who are very fond of online RPGs?
Yes. The one thing I always tell people is make sure you do one thing really well, because be a good programmer or a good artist or an animator or a writer. Make sure that you can tell a company, here's what I do, right? I can do this thing, because it's becoming so specialized now. You're looking for, like Elder Scrolls Online right now, we're looking for animators. So you need to have a set of skills, and even if you're in school studying animation, that's fine if you have the right skills.
So over all this time, has the player base changed? Did you have to adjust yourself, the game, Elder Scrolls Online, to your new target group?
So we launched on PC first and then console, and I am an old PC game developer, so this is my first console game. And I thought, like everyone else, that the PC players would be different from the console players, and it's totally not true. Like, it's funny, there are super hardcore console players, like super hardcore, and there are very casual PC players, and pretty much now with the new consoles that are just almost as powerful as PCs, it's the patterns are the same. And so it's not, we look at, internally we have metrics that show how players play, and it's almost exactly the same across platforms.
As we are talking about new consoles, you just announced that you're going to be on Stadia at the release date.
Yep.
What were the biggest challenges to adjust the game for a Stadia?
So Stadia, for those that don't know, is the Google streaming service. So you can play the game as a video stream. So what it was actually pretty easy to develop for, because Stadia was developing Stadia while we were helping. So we got to give them feedback, and because ESO is such a big game and very complicated, we needed to work together to make it work. But just being able to play ESO on a mobile phone or on a tablet or on a Chromebook, we have it in the office, and it's crazy. It's like magic.
Yeah.
You can have a Chromecast and just plug it into a TV and grab a controller, and it's there. So no downloading. There's no downloads. ESO is like an 80 gigabyte game, right? Yeah. There's no patching. Like you just log in, and it's always on the maximum PC settings. So it's if you have the bandwidth to play it, it's really, really cool.
So
that could be the only problem here in Germany.
Yeah.
But we're really looking forward to Stadia, and playing T-Zone Stadia might be very nice.
Do you think you get wider and brighter player base through Stadia? Because it's 70 gigabyte, and I got an SSD with I think 100, and I had to delete some games so that I could download it.
Yeah, well, it's funny. We run ESO runs on Macs, but we're not on the Apple Store, and we don't have a huge Mac, user base. But Stadia turns any laptop, no matter how powerful it is, into a gaming machine. So people who didn't want to spend, a lot of euros on a gaming PC, but just have like a little laptop or an old Mac, it'll run great. It makes it so a wider range of people can play because they don't have to spend so much money on hardware to play.
Your player base, is it more younger audience or more older audience, and what is the distribution between female and male players?
Yeah, well, ESO has over 13.5 million players now that have played the games since it launched, which is crazy. I think we have it's a role-playing game. Role-playing games tend to have a very wide age range, and ESO's age range is like 18 to 60. It's just very, very wide. And yeah, we have many more female gamers than most video games do, because this type of game, it just attracts people, not just gamers. So it's a little slower. It's not so much. It's not like a first-person shooter. You can just log in and play. If you want to just craft things and sell them, you can do that. You don't have to do combat. You don't have to PvP. In fact, I say this a lot, but if you ask 5 Elder Scrolls Online players to describe the game, they usually describe 5 different games. Because someone's a hardcore PvPer, someone just does dungeons, somebody just does solo questing and doesn't ever group with anyone, and it's all okay. Like, you can do all of that. So because it's so broad, it attracts a wide range of players.
And what about the younger audience, the Generation Fortnite, I would call it? They are the next big players. Do you have plans for targeting them, because they are accustomed to play a single game or a single round which goes around 10-15 minutes and then go to the next one?
Well, we have no specific plans for it, but obviously the best thing to do is just make really good games, and then an audience will find it. But ESO in general allows for 20-minute gameplay if you want. You can just log in and do quests. A PvP battleground match is less than 20 minutes, which is the thing that we have closest to the Fortnite model, although it's 4v4v4 instead of just a big battle royale. But so we have parts of it that would appeal to gamers like that, and they just have to be able to find it.
Well, obviously, the Elder Scrolls 6 is in development, and I guess you already got some information. I won't ask anything about that, but because I doubt you can say anything. But
correct.
Yeah. But I think we can expect that Elder Scrolls Online will have, in a few years, whenever the Elder Scrolls 6 is announced, have some updates, which is in relationship maybe to Elder Scrolls 6. Is that true?
Well, we're a different studio than Bethesda Game Studios that does the other games. So yes, we talk all the time, but we do what we do, and they do what they do. So we do have daily communication with them for the lore, and so yes, because of that, we need to make sure that we stay in our timeline, which is 700 years before Skyrim. And what they do is different. So we have to plan for it, but we don't really work together on it.
Okay.
Do you have special writers who just write the lore for all Elder Scrolls games?
Yes.
So they are some kind of they are the link between the teams when it comes to questions about lore.
Yeah, we have a position called the Lore Master, and the Lore Master's job is to make sure that they talk almost every day to the Bethesda lore people to make sure that everything is consistent. Especially when we're doing new chapters like Elsweyr and Somerset, and we want to have a whole new thing. Like Elsweyr, it's the first time anyone had been to Elsweyr since 1994. So there was a lot of talk about how does it look, how many of the 28 different kinds of Khajiit do we actually want to have in the game, right? And so those are the discussions we have with them.
Is there going to be a point where you say, okay, we have now all Tamriel in this game, but we want new areas, we want this game to be much bigger? Or do you say, no, there's...
Well, when you think about Elder Scrolls, it's Tamriel, but it's also all the Plains of Oblivion. We already have Cold Harbor, we have tons, so there's almost unlimited options for expansion.
So you do consider to add on some point of Tiso the Oblivion realms?
We already have one, yeah.
You have the Shivering Isles in some small part of the city?
We have some storylines take you to Shiagoras realm and the other different realms. So we already have a little taste of it in the game if you play those side quests. But we don't know. We know what we're doing next year and the year after. Okay. But we're considering lots of things for the year after that. So we'll see.
Okay, I see.
There was a lot of critique about the Elder Scrolls, Oblivion and Skyrim because the combat wasn't that intuitive. It wasn't that special looking. Did you consider that when you were developing the Elder Scrolls Online?
We did develop a couple of different combat systems for ESO. We did a very Dark Age Camelot, World of Warcraft, EverQuest type MMO system, and it just didn't feel right. It didn't feel Elder Scrolls. So we decided to go with the mouse, block, swing with controller to combat system. We did that, right around the time Skyrim came out, maybe a little before that. And it felt right for us. But in ESO, you have six or seven special abilities you can use too. So it's not just swinging the sword. You can also cast spells, and so it's a little easier to do than in say Skyrim, where you had the Dragon Shout, but then you could cast spells by equipping them. So in ESO, in Skyrim, you could stop and change things and then do something new, like equip a spell, equip a new weapon. In ESO, you can't do that because it's real time. So we had to come up with I have more options available to me. And because of that, it makes it feel a little more real time because I can just start doing lots of things at once.
It's a little bit more dynamic, I would say, than maybe a World of Warcraft battle system where you have your rotations, you are pressing the number buttons, and it's a little more dynamic, I would say. And I especially think that this is kind of a USP for the Elder Scrolls Online because there are not many real MMORPGs which have these kinds of dynamic fighting systems. And that's
and we did that on purpose because I've played a lot of World of Warcraft, so and a lot of all the other MMOs, and that type of combat just didn't feel right for Elder Scrolls. We wanted action, we wanted blocking and moving to the side and attacking, and yes, it's much more dynamic.
So obviously in a couple of weeks, World of Warcraft Classic is going to be announced.
Yep.
Is your team looking at this release and looking at what the colleagues at Blizzard are doing there?
Yeah. Well, obviously we love the genre, so a lot of us played it when it was WoW Classic, when it was just WoW, back in 2004. So it'll be an interesting walk down memory lane as we look at that. But my memories of those days are so fun that I'm going to do it just to check it out at least. It was really, really hardcore back then. That's the only thing. The raids back then were crazy. So we'll see if people have the patience to do it these days.
I read that you make a difference between MMORPGs and RPG online games.
Yeah.
And you would say then WoW Classic is more like an MMORPG and ESO is not.
Yeah, I think when people say MMORPG, they really mean EverQuest, Dark Age of Camelot, Anarchy Online, WoW, right? Those games that came out which were tab targeting, and it wasn't action really. It was more you use the UI to do combat, and really grindy. When new content came out, you needed to power level yourself up to 120 just to see the new stuff, right? ESO's not like that. It doesn't really have levels. You can log in. If you're a new player right now, you can buy Elsweyr and just start playing Elsweyr. It's like GTA. It doesn't really matter what level you are. And so because of that, and because you can play in 20-minute chunks and you can solo everything, I just don't call it an MMO because I don't want to give people the wrong impression. And so we call it an online RPG. But, I think now MMO, every game's an MMO. I mean, FIFA Soccer has leaderboards and, PvP, and you can chat with people. And those were all things you could only do in EverQuest when it came out. And now you can do it anywhere.
You told us before that the competition in Elsweyr was that that no one was in Elsweyr in Tamriel for a couple of years. how did your artists go on the special styles of Elsweyr? It's obviously a little bit, I would say, Indian or a little bit
Southeast
Oriental,
Asian. Yeah,
Southeast Asian.
Yeah.
How do your artists go on this adventure? Do they travel much, or do they do everything from at home?
They travel via Google search.
Okay, so this is your big secret.
No, but we looked at lots of different architecture for the Khajiit but we came up with that because it's different. It just looks different than anything else in Tamriel. And usually when you make games like this, you don't want to do something so new that players don't understand it.
Okay.
Right? So by making it giant stone with intricate carvings, yes, it looks Southeast Asian, but players see it and think it's really old, it's been there for 2,000 years, right? And it gives you the right idea for what the Khajiit are, which were really, really powerful 3,000 years ago, and now they're not, right? And so you look at it, it's kind of falling down, everything is not new, and we did that on purpose to make it feel like that, like Angkor Wat in not Vietnam, Cambodia.
Yeah.
In Cambodia.
Yeah, okay. And now we are going to the southern Elsweyr in the next updates.
Yep.
How is this going to be look?
Yeah, so northern Elsweyr was the Elsweyr chapter. Dragonhold in the fourth quarter is southern Elsweyr. So it looks similar, but it looks a little more jungle because it's closer to the south. And it has a town called Senshaw, which is very important in Khajiit lore. Lots of lore books in Elder Scrolls which talk about Senshaw, and that'll be in the game.
So, do you create new creatures, or are they already established in the universe?
We create new creatures for almost every update. Sometimes they're talked about in lore, and sometimes we just create them. You know, like in Elsweyr, we obviously added the dragons, which everybody knows about. But in Somerset, we added a couple, the Griffin, which was not really in an Elder Scrolls game before. But so we use ones that players know, like trolls and and ogres, and that players remember from Skyrim and Oblivion. But we add some new ones from time to time too.
All right. So is there anything you want to say? What is coming up next for the Elder Scrolls Online? Because our time is almost over.
Well,
it's your time to shine.
Yeah, the Season of the Dragon is going to be over with Dragonhold. So the end of that story stops. And then next year is a new story, which we'll tell you about soon, not now. But we're very excited about it. But I just always want to say thank you to the German community, because Europe is very important to Elder Scrolls Online. We have a very, very large European player base, and Germany is a very important part of that player base. So just want to say thank you, everyone, because this game would not exist without the community.
Well, thank you to you too. We already had a lot of fun with Elsweyr.
Good,
and we keep playing. So.
Definitely we will.
Yeah.
Yes.
Alright. So Leute, das war das Interview. Ich hoffe, das war ein bisschen informativ für euch. Wir verabschieden uns erstmal jetzt von der Stage. Und es geht dann weiter mit, weiß ich auch wieder nicht. Oh, ich bin so schlecht informiert. Steffen, weißt du es?
Ich glaube, die Indie-Stage kommt jetzt, oder?
Oh, Lars und Andreas sind wieder unterwegs und machen ein bisschen Schabernack. Also bleibt dran.